Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men, shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where our intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models. So the intention here is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing amazing things in the world. And joining me today is a gentleman who is doing just that. His name is Terrence Coffie. And we're going to be talking about his organization, his life story, which is a pretty amazing story. But before they do, I want to read this little intro to kind of set the context for our conversation. Because one of the greatest obstacles to our success as Black men is the high rate of incarceration. Now, the media would have you believe that we're all just a bunch of thugs and deviants who deserve to be locked up. There's seldom any compassion or empathy. Most people aren't willing to look at the disproportionate number of Black men who are falsely accused of crimes they didn't commit, or the fact that Black men generally will serve longer sentences for the same crimes that white men commit. Very few people will make the connection between institutional racism and high incarceration rates. But instead of pointing fingers and placing blame, the time has come for us as Black men to find solutions that will not only support Black men who are incarcerated, but more importantly, support Black men from ever being incarcerated. This is the intention of the Shatter the Stereotypes movement. My goal is to provide Black men with resources and tools that support them in making better choices in their lives. Tools of awareness that help them understand they are always 100% responsible for how their lives will turn out, despite the external forces that may influence their actions. As Black men, we are all capable of creating extraordinary lives, but it is up to us to take advantage of all the opportunities that are now in front of us, while still acknowledging the challenges that lie before us. It's also important that we provide men who have been incarcerated with support systems and networks that will keep them from re-entering the prison population. And my guest is someone who's doing just that. As mentioned, his name is Terrence Coffie, and he is the founder of an organization called Educate, Don't Incarcerate. And his mission is to drive criminal justice reform and improve access to higher education for formerly incarcerated persons through advocacy and mentorship. And so it is my absolute privilege to welcome Terrence to the show. Hello, Terrence. How are you, man?
Hey, my brother, how you doing? It is such a pleasure to be here, to share on this platform, share with your audience. And again, I want to thank you so much for inviting me here to spend a few minutes with you to kick it a little bit.
All right. So before we jump into your work, let's start off with a couple of icebreakers. First of all,
Yes.
tell us where you're from and share a little bit about your current family. Just tell us a little bit of whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay, well, right now, I'm as you shared, I'm the founder of Educate, Don't Incarcerate. I'm also an adjunct lecturer at New York University, where I teach forensic justice and problem solving courts. I do a lot of work surrounding advocacy here in New York State as well as in Washington. Now, outside of that, I'm Grandpapa. I recently celebrated my grandson's third birthday, and in that moment, I realized that he turned 3. That meant I turned 3 years older. So I'm coming to terms with that. I'm a father of 2 wonderful sons. I'm engaged. We have a beautiful life. We have a hopeful careers. And I kind of look at myself as fortunate because that wasn't always the story, and that definitely was not uh, the outcome that I saw for my life when I was 25 years old. So hopefully have opportunity to get in that and
Oh,
unpack that for your audience.
absolutely. Well, congratulations on the wedding coming up. That's
Yes,
awesome.
thank you.
That's awesome. And with that being said, now I want you to name a woman who's inspired you to be who you are today.
A woman that has inspired me to be who I am. My fiance, she knows who everyone knows who that is. Angela Bassett has
Oh,
inspired me to be who I am today. But honestly, I have to say it was my foster mom, my adopted mom. I always say that in these spaces, but that was my mom. It was the lady who adopted me when I was 9 years old, and was the lady who instilled in me a lot of the values that I live by today. Um, she has always been a pillar of hope, determination, resilience, fortitude, and I can go down a list of things to describe this lady because outside of being uh, the only child that she adopted as her own, that's just one thing. But she came from the deep South. She recently passed in 2018 at the beautiful age of 97, 98. And when I think about that now and speaking with you, she was that lady who told us that we can be whatever we want it to be. She was that lady who saw the worst of America when it comes to racism and discrimination, being as old as she was. But she was also that lady who was determined that the boys that she raised in that foster home and the individual that she instilled in us that thing that there was no, like she's his old church girl, there's no mountain too high, no valley too low that you can't be all that you can be. So I would, that's my mom.
yeah, there you go, man. That maternal love is powerful, right?
Yes.
Very
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah. That stuff. And for me, when I have these conversations on that maternal love, there was another valuable lesson that she taught me that I carry with that I carry with me today, and that really influences a lot of what I do. She shared with me after my biological mother had died, um, and I remember I went to they allowed me to go to the funeral, and while at the funeral, um, I remember thinking to myself that maybe if I'm just if I be the best kid I can be, if I can be be on my best behavior, maybe if I can be the best, whatever that, was, um, maybe my biological family will, take me and my sisters in and raise us where, I wouldn't have to deal with all this other stuff that, I had been, you know, influenced by up to that point. And I remember the day of the funeral, and I remember thinking that I remember being at the home of some family members, and I remember almost like groveling in every aspect as a child. And I remember on the day that the social worker came back, I just knew that they were going to say, um, we've decided, children don't know. I just thought you could just make that decision and take the child and everybody go on their happy way. And I remember returning back to my mama. And I remember her instinctively seeing that pain and sensing that pain in me. And the lesson she taught me, you know, a lot of us always say blood is thicker than water. On that day, she taught me that sometimes love is thicker than blood. And that's what she gave me. And that's what I carry uh, with me. And it's again, one of those things that helps direct who I am and what I do, in spite of who I may have to assist. I just want
Yeah.
to share.
Now, there are some people who are pessimistic about the future in general, while others are optimistic about the future in general. So where do you fall on that spectrum between optimism and pessimism for the future in general? Where do you fall?
I'm always optimistic. I'm always optimistic. Uh, and it's not just because of my own life story, because you know my optimism is also built into that. But as a whole for this country and it's just for the future, I'm one of those individuals as a researcher, you know, as an educator. One of the things I do is I learn to look at history, and I think history teaches us some very critical, important lessons that we can learn from. And as a people, um, when we think of slavery, when we think about the Emancipation Proclamation, when we think of the Black Wall Streets, when we think about Jim Crow, when we think about the Civil Rights Movement, when we think about the trajectory and changes that we've seen in this country over this period of time, and sometimes it's slow for us as a people, and it's slow to me, but at the same time, I think that uh, that trajectory provides us with an opportunity to still aspire for this country to live up to its ideals. There's the reality and it's the ideal of America. And the ideal of America is always relevant because the ideal of America, although constructed by white men, was an appeal to all people. And it's still, the Constitution is probably still one of the most beautiful documents for humanity, in my opinion, outside of who wrote it. When you just look at the words and you take the context of color out, and you just look at the words that all men are created, et cetera, et cetera. And we can go on into that. So I am very hopeful that although we may continue to go through some challenging times, and we're seeing some of that in 2020 and from 2016 to 20, we saw challenging times. But I believe in hope. I believe in perseverance. I believe in the good of people as a whole, in spite of what I've been through in my personal life, because if there is any one person on God's green earth who could say some things, I can say them. But I do not let those things dictate how I move forward, how I choose to move forward, because one sourpuss can make another sourpuss if you choose to let. And for me, I have to choose, and every day I have to choose to put my best foot forward in spite of what others may do legislatively, what others may do as a human being, I have to continue, as Michelle Obama said, I have to continue to take the high road for my own spirit and my own well-being. So that's what I believe. So in short, I'm very optimistic about the future. I'm very optimistic about what I'm seeing that's happening in society, even though we're like at the front end of it. What I like to do is look at, if we get through this, what does this possibly mean? And when I look at that, that just inspires me more to in the work that I do to continue pressing forward.
Yeah, and my friends gave me a nickname. They call me Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
That's a good name. I think I'm gonna adopt that one.
They say, you and your happy ass, because I'm always so optimistic. Now, interestingly enough, like yourself, I've overcome some amazing challenges in my own life. and far exceeded what society says a young Black male with only an 11th grade education should have accomplished. So my life story in and of itself inspires me to be optimistic. But
Hmm.
also, like yourself, I'm a huge advocate of science and learning and researching like yourself. And as I look at the trajectory that we're on as a country, I too am extremely optimistic. Because as I look at the young people that are coming up now, and most people may not accept this, but as a group, Black people are more educated now than they've ever been. And what that
Exactly.
says is we have more attorneys, we have more doctors, we have more law. I mean, we have in every segment of society as a group, we are flourishing despite what we see in mainstream media. And so that's why I think it's important to have platforms like this so we get to introduce and showcase, especially Black men who are doing remarkable things in the world. And you, in my opinion, sir, are doing just that. Now, with that being said, I want you to share your story because it is inspiring. So if you can kind of walk us through a little bit that story, that's really powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the end story, I guess we can go backwards because I like to always set the stage for anyone who hears me. As I've shared, I'm an adjunct lecturer at New York University. I graduated the NSAW Student of the Year. I've studied in Salzburg, Austria. I've been named the Coca-Cola all academic team, New York State all academic team. I've had opportunity to sit with individuals such as Michelle Alexander and Katie Couric, and I have this very fulfilling life today. But as I always share, that's not how the story began. So if we let's wind back the clock. Um, I grew up in foster homes. Uh, my I was taken from my family at the age of 6. My daddy was a pimp, and my mama was a prostitute. That's where I was birthed. I saw poverty before poverty was poverty. Uh, at that age, I had to learn to fight, and it's not because I was a fighter, I wanted to fight, but the conditions and environment in which I grew up in called for that for me to protect my two siblings, my two sisters at that time. We were taken away and placed in foster care, and even in that system, I was forced into uh, a lot of violence and fighting because I got bullied a lot as a kid. But being a foster child, I had a lot of things hurled at me that your mom didn't want you. So if you're a foster child, you're gonna have to fight. Particularly, it is what it is. And I grew up that way. My first time in the juvenile justice system uh, was, I think, at 8 when one of the older boys in the house touched me. And I knew enough growing, in my little short 8 years, knowing that if you allow that to happen, I've seen that in other places. You allow that to happen, then you become a victim. And I remember getting up in the middle of the night, Mike, and taking a Coca-Cola bottle and busting him upside the head. I remember them, the police coming and them taking me to the center, to the juvenile justice center. Well, it was actually right there in town, but they're a little juvenile justice center. I remember being labeled a troubled child. I remember said all these things about me in regards to that incident, but not once did anyone ever ask me why I did it. And I want to be very honest with you. I wasn't going to tell nobody because I thought that if I said something, that meant somehow that something was wrong with me. And the older guy didn't say nothing because then somebody may think something wrong, So that was and I remember after that I came out, and that's really, where I started being labeled this bad child. Now I really had to fight. So around 9 years old, my biological mother died, and anything that I thought about, because I looked at television a lot, in foster homes. I fantasized, I was the kid that would have to look at all these characters who I would be somebody. I wouldn't just, the little foster child. I was somebody. And I could lose myself in fantasizing because it took me away from my reality. And one of the dreams that I had was that I used to look at these shows like Ripley's Believe It or Not, where these families would reconnect after a period of time, and you would see this happily ever after, and you would see the pictures of them eating. I'm Black, and I'm a little Black boy. I don't know snap about no damn s'mores, but we were gonna have s'mores, and we are gonna be sitting around the fireplace, and that's what I imagined. I had no concept of poverty in the way in my mind, I could just escape because that was happy. And it was on a day that the the social workers came when I was 9 that I remember them calling me because I as long as the time I was in foster care, I never knew that parents died. I did not know that. I didn't know that story. The only story I knew was that you go to foster care, and I had enough foster brothers and sisters that when they come, the parents meet the requirements of the state or whatever, and they go back home, and everybody lives happily ever after. Um, and on that day, I remember them calling me, Mike. I remember thinking, this is my happily ever after. I'm gonna have my s'mores, and we're gonna be sitting around the fireplace, and my dad is gonna be, that stuff you see, and we're gonna be all happy. And I was, he's gonna be hugging me, and we're gonna be smiling, and and I remember standing there, and when I was going in, I was remembering, all the clothes I had to get, what toys I was going to give away, what, I got to hurry up and do this quick because you in and out, and I just had to go. And they called me in and they asked me, did I want to go to my mother's funeral? And I'm 9 years old, and I'm sitting here, and I heard them. And I don't know if it was a rhetorical, I don't know. What else was I going to say? No. And that ended that. And my world became that much colder and that much darker and that much more dank. And it was around, as I shared with you earlier, I went to my mother's funeral, and I thought that I would be able to at least, I'm optimistic because in on my event, I said, well, at least I'll know what she looked like. But when they found my mother's body, her body was so decomposed that they had to have her body was burnt, cremated. Um, and I remember thinking, as I shared, that I thought that my family would take me in. And it's one of the things, the most valuable lessons that I learned from my mama. When I say my mama, I actually mean my adopted mother. I don't want people to confuse that. It was that time I learned one of the most valuable lessons that I would learn in life, when my biological family sent me back to the foster care system, back to the foster home. And I remember getting back and my mother teaching me these words. She said, Terrence, sometimes in life, love is thicker than blood. And it was about a few months, a year later or so, that she adopted me as her own child. But even with her adopting me, I was conflicted. I was angry. I still had to fight. Nothing changed on that front. But one of the things I did learn about violence is that growing up is that you can be invisible and doing good, or being a good kid. So I learned that lesson from my family. Being a good kid didn't do me no good because I was still sent back to the foster home. But what I did learn was that through that act of violence on the gentleman I told you who touched me, by the time I came back, I was seen then. They saw me. I was alive, and there was no place for me to attempt to decipher whether that attention was for good or bad. I was always invisible. I'm the kid that the foster homes I was in, they would lock me in the rooms. I'm the one that they didn't want to see. I'm him. So me having that place in life, and violence became not because I wanted to be violent. It made me seen. I was a real person, good, bad, and indifferent. And I took that with me as I grew up. And when I think what was well defined for me was there was a bully. I think I was like in the 8th grade, 9th grade, named Slob. Now, I hope you all know if you got a bully named Slob, yeah, I know you probably have one. It's that one with that name. It was him. Um, and I remember one day they was chasing me home, Mike. And I remember while chasing me home, I had all got chased home up to that point the whole time, and over this period of time. But I remember that one day that I just turned around and swung, Mike. I didn't swing out of being bad. I didn't want to get jumped, but I swung out of fear. And I remember when I hit it, Mike, you ever seen one of those movies where everything just going slow motion? It's like Rocky Balboa, boom. And then right when it happens, everything just speeds back up, because soon as everything speeds back up and I hit him, he hit the ground and his friends, look, I took off running. And I was scared that whole night. I remember coming to school the next day afraid of what was going to happen to me. And when I got to that school, Michael, it was one of the, I got this when I got there. I heard I got this. I used to just be like, well, it was like, what's up, Cole? So you got to know where we're from. You get the head like, what's up, Cole? And I never got a chance to do the, I got the head now. Because what had happened, people had learned that I had knocked this dude out. And that opened a whole new world to me of being seen. Because then I was no longer just, look, foster kid I told you about who got chased, da, da, da. Now I was known for, and yeah, I got the, Now with that, I want your listeners with that, because remember the attention now. The ones that I used to admire and look to, who they had nothing to do with me. I'm with the cool kid. If you know the young cat, we say it now, it sounds so lame to say the cool kid, them dudes, I was with them now. And I did whatever it was to be with them. That's why I started smoking cigarettes. That's when I started skipping school. That's when I started, and with that came the first marijuana, yo, what we gonna bro? And with that, well, we got this package. And with that, I left home at 17. By the time I was 20 years old, I was in prison for the first time in my life. By the time I turned 39 years old, I had been to prison 6 times. A rap sheet so long, and my last incarceration was for an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And at that point, because I had been in prison so many times before, I became a habitual offender. And a habitual offender is an individual who has committed so many crimes that the state has now decided that he's a career criminal. And our resolution for you now is to lock you up for the span of 30 years. They offered me 20 years for the habitual status, habitual offender status, and 10 years for the aggravated assault. And it was there. I want to share a little bit about my foster mother, because my foster mother, I remember my biological dad was a pimp. My mama was a prostitute. And the family that adopted me, where I got the last name Coffie, where actually my daddy was a minister and my mama was a first lady in the church. And she used to make me read a lot, and I hated it. She used to make me I don't know if any of your listeners remember the Ebony magazine, the Ebony books, with the brown cover and the gold. She used to make us read those and come back and tell her what we read. And I didn't think I was good at nothing. I just could just do it. And she used to always tell me I was smart. But you're gonna have to remember that piece, because that would play out later on in my academic career. But however, she also used to take me to church all the time. I hated church. And oh my God, Sunday school, this school, that, this, da, 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 and all of that. So I was influenced by the Bible, of that teaching, and prayer. And she used to always tell me, Terrence, you always put God first. You put God first. And and a lot of things she used to say to me, and I share with people a lot of things that my mama said to me coming up, I really took for granted because what I thought was that I was a charity case in life. What I thought when she used to tell me I was smart, I used to think that she was just telling me that to tell me something because I was not athletically inclined. I was not I didn't have the nice clothes. I could not play basketball. None of that was me. I could not dance. I had none of that. I had two left feet. My granddaughter and my grandkids tell me, Papa, don't dance, because I'll start doing my boogie woogie and they stop me in my track. So I had none of that. So when she used to tell me those things, Mike, I thought she was just telling me that to tell me something, because what else you gonna say? I have nothing else. There was no future with my family no more. I did not have the skill set that most Black men, they say we have, and all of that. None of that stuff played out for me. And it was later, my brother, that in that cell, when they offered me those 30 years, that I remember praying to the God that this lady had taught me all my life. And because I was not praying to God for him to get me out of that situation, because I knew I was going to prison. I can handle that. What I could not handle was that 30-year flat. I couldn't eat that because at that time I was 39 years old. And if you do the math, that meant I would be getting out of prison by the time I was 70 years old. And when I hit, and what that meant to me was that I have wasted my whole life. That was the reality. That was the, she used to say something. She'd say, Terrence, one day you're going to get yourself in some mess you can't get out of. And I had been to prison time, I've been to gunfights, I done did, and I got out of, you know what I mean? But that brought me to my knees. And that brought me to my knees in a way that struck the fear of God in me. Because now, that reality hit me. You're going to get yourself in some mess you can't get out of. And I remember going to that cell after they told me that. I remember praying to this God, just whoever my mama God was. And I was, the only thing I was saying, please, don't let them give me that much time. Please, it was 2 weeks later that they called me and that the charges against me were dropped.
Wow.
That began the cycle, because I got in one last incident, and it was on November 8th, 2008. I was sitting in Gainesville Correctional Institution. And it was the night Barack Obama was elected. And you got to remember, when I told you, my mama used to make me read those ebony books. This is the lady, who came from the deep South, who had this strong belief in Black men and in Black people, because she came from where, we talk about stuff being hard today. She come from where it was happening, like for real, for real. And it was on that night, man, when Barack Obama got elected, that my world began to change. Because all those years of the Black jokes, man, a Black man become president, you're gonna see hell gonna be free. That's when you see a Black man president. Black man be president when you see pig, all that, those little Black jokes. But remember, I had the woman who came up under that from that Jim Crow era for real, and she told me some other stuff. And it was on that, man, when I saw that election, and I wish we had that clip. I got to find it for myself. There was, you remember the night when Barack was giving the speech, and they was going through the crowd, they showed Jesse Jackson crying, they were showing off. There's a clip of this old Black lady in there. And she reminded me of my mama. And everything my mama used to tell me that I could be, and that I was. And I'm seeing this Black man elected for the first time. I'm seeing this, it hit me. I have messed up my life. I believe the lies. Because his election, just like when we talk about that the men, where young Black men have to see the representation of the sex. For me, it was that night. For me, it was that. It was that, because it defied all the things that I believe that society has said up to that point. It invigorated in me what my mama used to say about us as the Black people. It reminded me all the things that she used to tell me about myself. She was right. I was wrong. And now I had to reflect over my whole life now. I'm 39. I'm in this new space. And it was through a chain of events that I began this journey to meeting you. After I got out of that last situation, man, uh, a friend asked me, did I, because I'm 39. I tell young cats I talk to, they really ain't no thugging after 30. If you thugging after 30, you done missed it. So here I am with me. I'm 39 years old. My life is, I've been fortunate to escape a 30-year bid. And here I am, and the guy came to me and they asked me if I wanted to come to New York to come to a program to start my life over. And I didn't know what started life over meant, because the only thing I knew up to that point was the penitentiary. That's all I knew. I knew get out, go back to the pension, go back to the streets, go back to the pen. That was the cycle. That was all it was. And it was in that, brother, that I said yes. And what I was saying yes to was not that my life was going to change or I was going to become all the things that I've shared with you. What I was saying yes to was not going back to the penitentiary. That was it. I didn't know what comes after the penitentiary, but I knew that the penitentiary didn't come. I knew that much. And it was when I came to New York and I got in this program, and I think that the next significant thing happened is when I graduated that program. Because up to that point in my life, I hadn't completed nothing else outside of a prison bid. I never completed anything good for myself. I never found that place in my life that I did something beneficial for me. And when I graduated that program, man, it was like me earning a degree, but all, it was a lot of more things would come after that. And through this program, they offered me a job. And it was there that I like to share with people. That's where I found my purpose. Because by this time I was going into my early, 40. I was hitting that 40. And what dawned on me while I was there in that program, I had a lot of these young cats who was my age, when I was started the game, who were coming in 18, 21, 25, and they on some stuff that I done lived. So I would find myself intervening with them to keep them from doing going to hand-to-hand combat over something that minor stuff, but I understood it, and we can get down. And they used to call me OG. And it was through that one of the case managers there said, well, I think you should think about going to school. And when he said go to school, because they gave me an entry-level position, what came to my mind, like he shared, I could at least be a case manager. I could be one of those guys. I could have a career, at least I could have something outside of an entry-level position. So that's why I entered school. It was two purposes for me when I entered school. The first purpose for me when I entered school was not to go back to the penitentiary. And now I had at least a purpose that I can help these other young men who were coming through that program that I had graduated to help them through. That's where it began. And that was the only plan, because I could not see nothing else further than that for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But during my academic career, when I remember I took my first college placement test, the old lady again, I'm gonna have y'all hear me always refer back to the old lady, came back to me because I scored off the charts with that placement test. I scored off the charts so much that they gave me an immediate the semester that I was supposed to go, it was supposed to start the fall. They put me in right then in that upcoming semester. And that was at Bronx Community College. And while at Bronx Community College, I excelled academically. I was named to the Coca-Cola All Academic Team, New York State All Academic Team. I graduated Phi Theta Kappa. I was selected as one of four of 11,000 students to study in Salzburg, Austria. And all this was going on. And the only thing that I could think when I think about my life, and in particular when I talk about this, is my mama. A lady who used to tell me I was smart. The lady I used to believe that she was just telling me something just to tell me something. Because I had been in gunfights, I had did the gang, I did it all, man. I got, I got to tell cats, I show them my tattoo, man, this thing here got, we say tatted in blood, all mine come out the chain gang. And that's how I just saw myself. And it was after I got back from Austria and my 2014 with when I graduated with my AA degree that I got the call from New York University. And when they called, I had some advisors around me and people around me that, I started getting these people, and I remember sharing that with them. And I remember, and let me say this, I know they meant well. Let me make that clear. But I also want to share, you cannot ever allow someone else's perception or expectations of you to limit you to what they think for you. You know what I mean? Because when I got the call from NYU, and I remember sharing it with these people, a lot of them told me in a nice way, well, maybe you should just try for a CUNY school. Maybe you should just try for, but what they were telling me in that moment was that I was not good enough to compete at that level, is what they were telling me.
Right.
What they would tell, yeah, you get what I'm saying, Mike? So
oh, yeah. Absolutely.
With that, I had to do what I told you I did in the jail cell. I remember coming home that day, and I remember crying. I remember feeling broken. I remember feeling like I wasn't good enough. But I also remember getting on my knees. I remember asking that God again, listen, I didn't ask for this. I remember that. And I remember when I got off my knees, I had decided, because also I received scholarship letters from USC, Texas A&M, oh my God, Northwestern. I got about 8. And I remember, Michael, looking at New York University, and because they told me what I couldn't do, that, well, they didn't say it, but in their own way, they were saying I put, when you go to Las Vegas and you put all the chips on the table and you push it all out there. I applied to one school and one school only, New York University. We're gonna let the chips ride now. Because if I make it, if I don't, I don't. But I'd be damned if I didn't make it by believing what somebody else said I could be or what I could achieve. That was not gonna happen, because that would have put me back into thinking of myself and being dictated by what people have always said about what I was and what I wasn't.
Yeah. See, and that's as I listen to your story, and I think about all the brothers out there, who have been told what they cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And they've bought into the stereotypes and the limitations that society has placed on them. But it isn't until we make a conscious choice, an internal conscious choice, like you did. You made a choice. Number one, you weren't going back to prison.
That one.
that was a choice. So you made a conscious choice. And then you made another choice, that you would educate yourself. And that's what you did. You educated yourself. So you shattered all the stereotypes. You said, look, if it's to be, it's up to me. You took full responsibility for your life.
Exactly.
That's what this conversation is about. It's about taking full responsibility for your life. Now, with that being said, number one, amazing story. And again, every Black man should hear this story, because you are the epitome of what's possible for us, despite our circumstances, despite all the externals out there that sometimes appear to be holding us back.
That work against us, absolutely.
Yeah, so you shattered those stereotypes, but here's something that I really want to talk about, because as Black men, one of the things that I talk about a lot is we as Black men, unfortunately, have a difficult time sometimes opening up and sharing. Now, my area of expertise is the changing roles of manhood and masculinity. I've written several books on it, but I want to share a clip real quick, and then we're going to have a conversation because this is really powerful. Let me get this up here real quick, and then we'll have a conversation here. Let me skip this text. All right. Now, I absolutely love that clip. Now, unfortunately, sometimes as Black men, we don't really talk about the joys that we experience. Now, you've been through a lot, a lot. And yet, as I watch that video, I see a man expressing joy from the deepest recesses of his heart, just feeling good about himself. So I'm curious, how did you get to that point? Because I know you've had to done some work, some inner healing. How did you get to that point?
And when I look at that, though, I had to catch myself. I still think I'm rough and tough and all that. Not really. I got to there, man. It, it it was a process. Let me say that. That what you saw was a years of growing, years of going through pain, years of coming to terms with my life, years of realizing that a lot of the decisions that I made as a young man, I was still making it on the notions of a hurt little boy. I was still fighting. Even when in spaces in my life, I didn't have to, but I wasn't fighting physically. I was fighting another kind of way. And it was on that day when that video was shot that it was a culmination of all that had finally came together. When I was looking out at the ocean, and it dawned on me. Remember, you got to keep it all together. When I used to look at those TV shows, and I used to see kids being kids. I remember thinking, what was that like to not have the worries or the struggles that I had as a child? I remember, and it's as if in that moment, all those worries and struggles had somehow been overcome. And I was left back with this little kid who remembered the shows that I would look at and I would fantasize. And I realized that somehow or another, through those lived experiences, that I have finally came back around to him. And I need to say, I share this with a lot of people. It was recently. That's why, throughout my career, and people follow me on my different, you'll always see me in that other mode of, what I do. But that day I felt like I had overcome those things. I felt like that I was coming back one with myself, because when you're always in conflict with yourself, you'll always find yourself in that place. And it was that day that I hugged the little boy that I didn't like because the world didn't like. I hated him because y'all hated him. I hated him because he wasn't like y'all. I hated him. If he would have been like Michael, all the then I could, but you know, and I never embraced it. But when I on that day after all I had been through and you know, different, and I need to tell there had been different experience even in my academic career because I would, you know, I would study childhood development and ACEs and all these different theories. And it was fascinating while I'm sitting in class, Michael. I saw me in the syllabus and in the curriculums. I saw the story of my life, my pain, my detachment, my everything. And it was through that period of time that while they thought that I was studying for my professional career, which I was, it was like I was finally getting answers to the riddle that made up me that I never had. And as I began to unpack that over the years, I began to embrace me. I began to able to forgive my mother, my biological mother, my biological father, because what I come to understand, they only did the best with what they had. I gave up my resentments towards my adopted mother because I resented her for being the mother I wanted her to be, but she really wasn't my mother because I was a charity case. I began to actually forgive myself for some of the hurts and pains that I put myself through. Because remember, the night Barack Obama got elected, I really had to reflect back on the times that, Michael, I actually could have walked away a couple of times. But my pride and my ego and my arrogance wouldn't allow me because of the environment I was in. I had to, when I wanted to, I couldn't, but I could have. Everything that required gunplay, everything that required fight. Sometimes it's a stronger man that walks away, but I couldn't see that in that time, and that costed me. You know, I like to tell cats sometimes there's a price tag on some things, man. You just don't know. You know, there's a heavy cost.
Yeah.
And it was through that process over years on that day. But I think a little bit of it had been happening a little bit before that. I'm very playful with my fiance. And she's like, oh my God, you're like a big kid. I'm like a big kid because all my life I had to be this other thing. I couldn't be vulnerable to just be playful. I couldn't be vulnerable just to be playful. I couldn't because I didn't grow up that way.
Right.
And it was scary to be that way because in my mind, if I'm that way, that means I'm soft and being soft meant, no, that soft meant I was human. But it was distorted with all these other words that caused me to look at it like, you know, like, huh. And I wore this shield of armor around my spirit, this hardened concrete, outside of what society had done, because society made show me it could be a cold world. And in turn, I thought I had to be cold back, but not realizing that coldness that I was adopting was freezing every humane part of me as a person.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
And it was through those experiences of my life and seeing other young men graduate college that I had assisted. Seeing these young men's families cry to me, and I would be there with them, Michael, and they're crying, and I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry because that part of me was frozen. I mean, even after my successes. And it was only in the past year, I need to say that I began to go on this internal spiritual journey that I can't describe, that I began to get in touch with all the pain that I was carrying. And as I unpacked it, as I began to let go of things, as I began to forgive myself, as I began to forgive people that impacted my life up to that point.
Yeah, but see, here is the lesson for the viewers. Terrence, again, has been through some pretty traumatic experiences, but he made a choice. And I've said this before. He made a choice. And that choice was to heal. As Black men, it is absolutely imperative that we become courageous enough to heal. Because if we aren't willing to make peace with our past, it will interrupt our present and our future. So that healing process of being willing to get in touch with your emotions and knowing that it doesn't make you less of a man to be in touch with your feelings, being able to feel and express joy. You know, that's what I loved about that clip, because, you know, a lot of my friends, you know, as mentioned, I have a bunch of friends that say, actually, Terrence and I were having this conversation earlier. My friends gave me a nickname, and they call me Michael Happy Ass Taylor.
I like that name.
And they call me that because overwhelmingly I'm filled with joy. Now, at the same time, I don't deny all the challenges that are out there in the world, but what I know is I'm only responsible for one person. First and foremost is myself. And being able to love myself and be in touch with myself in that way is the key to my success. And it is the key to your success. Being willing to address and deal with the stuff, because we all have stuff.
Exactly.
If you're a Black man in this country, trust me, you have stuff. So you have to be willing to address it. Now, we are both examples that it's possible to deal with your stuff and move through it. Now, Terrence, you mentioned it's been years. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I'm still growing. I'm still learning. Okay, but
and I think that what you just said is important for your viewers to know, that it's progress, not perfection. That growing process, we continue to learn these little pieces of nuggets about ourselves each and every day that we live. And I don't say that lightly. And I really want to say that to your audience, that I do not say that lightly, because I'm the cat who came from the gutter for real. I'm the one who was, you know, one thing I hear guys say, I was raised in this. I get you, but boy, I was born in it. You may have been raised in it. I was born in it. And when you were talking about that choosing to heal, I want to tell you, man, there have been moments, Michael, I've sat, and I tell you, on this spiritual journey, it was like almost like the creator in the universe kind of gave me the space and time to see each and every incident. And although I had already made the choices then, I had to redefine the choices I made then, because those choices were still making up who I was today. So I got a chance to go back and see where I could have done this. I had chances where I could say, I was wrong. I was wrong in that. And it hurt me a lot of times, because it's almost like I should have known better. And I wanted to tell the universe, and the universe would say, but you still had a choice. And even in that journey for me, what it was doing was unpacking all that stuff, that belief system that had conditioned me from the foster homes, the juvenile justice system, the streets, prison, society, because they gave me what I like to call a righteous indignation to be right, even if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Justifiable anger. But the more I carried the anger, the more the anger impeded my ability to see the world clearly through my own eyes, not through somebody else's. Because up to that point, I was seeing the world through the eyes of other people because of what they taught me. I adopted their belief system, so it became mine, and that's how I saw the world. Yeah. You get what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, that's the journey of growth. Becoming self-introspective so that you can start cleaning the lenses through which you see the world.
See the world, exactly.
Because see, we see the world through our own perceptions and lenses. And it might look one way to us, but that may not be the way that it really is. So if we're willing to clean those lenses so that we can see the world as it is. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, but we have to be willing to clean the lenses so that we can see.
See the world, exactly.
Now, again, thank you for sharing that, because men need to hear that story. But time's kind of moving quickly, and
Yes, it is.
I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to share your program, because that's something that is so important. So I want to play a clip real quick, and then we're going to talk about EDI. So let me play the clip.
If Lady Justice was truly refined, non-violent offenders wouldn't spend decades confined off 3 petty crimes. 3 strikes, you're out of time, but that is a story I'd rather not be mine. Maybe if my tone was lighter, so would my sentence be. Statistics prove that, but by the numbers is not how I want history to remember me. Not as one of the 700,000 released from the Fed this year, as part of the majority who were expected to return right back here. No, I have a name. And the light who gave me it shall see her son return. Wrap her arms around me while her cheek muscles burn, to the point the warmth melts away every ounce of concern. Until the Quality Housing and Work Responsibility Act is learned. Public housing agencies are authorized to deny housing to felons. No longer locked up, just locked out. But I believe opportunity knocks for those who put in the work. Those with goals and drive, unafraid of their ego being hurt. Start from the bottom, plant my seeds in the dirt. A man willing to earn and prove every penny he's worth. Then I'm told my conviction comes with restrictions on professional licenses and permissions to gain employment as a medical technician or in the law division. No firefighter missions, and in most cases, if that prison box is checked, your resume goes missing. No longer locked up, just locked out. I was warned the road could be bumpy after I was set free. To not get down when the winds treat me like debris. Follow my aspirations, go get myself a degree. History, science, literature, maybe trigonometry. Maybe employers would talk more if I mastered chalkboards, but I'm banned from getting grants or a scholarship fund and shown the front door. No longer locked up, just locked out. Dear Senator and Congressman, you need to be aware of the truth. 1 in 3 black men are under control of the criminal justice system in their youth. This is no conspiracy theory. There is factual proof. Can't you hear my voice? Why are your ears aloof? Probably I'm denied your efforts because me and nearly 6 million others' votes aren't allowed at the booth. Our voices are silenced. No longer locked up, just locked out. There are paths for some, for others there are halls, echoing of struggle and our past returning calls. When our efforts receive no merits and we keep hitting walls, I gently ask you pardon me in case I once again fall.
that is one of the most powerful videos I've ever seen. The metaphor of the doors that are locked and closed that we can't get in. I remember I was in a situation where, I'd gone to jail, had the record, trying to find a job, couldn't even get minimum wage jobs because of my record, and just really feeling those closed doors, knocking on doors. But through grace, despite only having an 11th grade education, despite having a criminal background, there was a part of me that made a choice. And that choice that I was going to become successful and that my life was eventually going to become extraordinary. And as a result of that choice, again, I've written 9 books, I've done international interviews, speaking and so forth, like yourself, Terrence. I'm out there trying to make a positive impact on the world. So you and I are both living examples of what's possible for Black men. But at the same time, we have that small group of men who need our support.
Mm-hmm.
And your organization, EDI, I want you to talk about it so that we know the resource that's available. So share a little bit about it, what it's about.
Yeah, actually, I Educate, Don't Incarcerate was founded in 2016 while I was still an undergrad at New York University. And the premises and the basis of this organization is to assist those individuals, as you said, who are coming home from prison with mentorship as well as trainings and connecting them with jobs, opportunities that I've created through my own journey. My story is so interconnected because, I want to take you back. Because remember when I told you I started at the at the organization with the Dope Fund, my goal was at least I can at least help these guys to get through the program. And that just goes it kind of goes show how life presents you with a greater, I hate to say a greater calling, but a greater mission. Let me put it that way. So the same commitment and passion that I saw in assisting those individuals when I just want to be a case manager is, now I have this platform. I'm a graduate of New York University. I've earned my master's. I teach. So I dedicated this organization, Educate, Don't Incarcerate, to assist those individuals who are coming home with the necessary resources that they're going to need in order to rebuild their lives. We also have another component that's called I Am a Credible Messenger. And I Am a Credible Messenger focuses on teaching advocacy and legislative policy to those individuals to effectuate change. Because one thing I'm clear on, you and I in this space, Mike, we can help some people. We're going to touch some people. But what happens when you and I give ourselves to 100 and those 100 help those other 100 that you and I may not be able to reach? So it becomes, it's almost like that pyramid in which we build on one another and with one another to inspire one another. And up to this point through my organization, I've assisted over 50 young men who have, entered college and earned their degrees and now going on to do the work they're doing today. And that's what I continue to do. I host a weekly radio show. It's Coffee Time with Professor Coffie, where I talk about the issues related to criminal, racial, and social justice reform in this country. And again, that was birthed out of the purpose in that choice. I like that choice that I made for my own life, that in turn I was able to help someone else, and hopefully in turn that someone else is going to help someone else. And that's the way I think that this thing could go. And Dr. Du Bois book, and I think in Souls of Black Folks, he talks about the talented 10th. And although in the talented 10th, he was, in that era, he was talking about how in this country, African Americans, we would, succeed politically, socially, economically, et cetera. A percentage of us would succeed. He said, but with that success became another responsibility that we dedicate ourselves and our lives to giving back and helping that 90%. So I like to think of individuals such as you, myself, and a host of other advocates and individuals in this work as the new talented 10, because that responsibility falls solely on us. And I don't even say that lightly. I know, I have a lot of colleagues and friends who don't share my views. And I respect that. But my commitment to my life and the work that I do in regards to the population you and I are discussing, and that just doesn't impact the justice involved. This extends to a community of people, particularly when we talk about African Americans in this country, that sometimes we feel challenged by the barriers and status quos of this society as what it has, instructed us. I can tell you, I'm an adjunct lecturer. I can tell you, I've worked in executive positions and all this stuff, but I'm also going to tell you, man, this would not be under no circumstances had it not been for the Michaels that I met in my life that gave me another perspective on what I could be or what my life could become as a Black man, because mine was defined by people like Ray, Raw, them boys. And on this journey, I met individuals like Clifford Marshall and Dr. Baskerville and Dr. Hawkins and Dr. Michael Lindsay and Dean O'Mealy. And I'm like seeing a whole new picture of, I thought this was the only definition of Black. Thug life, I keep it tat. I thought that was it. I thought that was the lot of life. But it's the commitment of men such as yourself in this platform and the work that you're doing that opens that like I like to say, we offer another perspective on the spectrum of Blackness. And unfortunately, and I think you said it earlier, it's not that they're not there, but for those individuals we're talking about, sometimes we don't get to see them. We see the Rays and the Rock, we see them. They connect with us. They give us, when I was a shout, they give us a little $5, little shout to go get. Then I want to emulate you and be you. Not because what you're doing is right or wrong, but you see me. Now that's going to go back to, I want to show this influence that goes back to when I was a foster child, whether it was negative or positive. It just happened, they saw me. So imagine when we have the men who have overcome those obstacles, who have reached those pinnacles of society and have reached the attainment of success, such as yourself and the many. Imagine if that resource pool is shown to this population that is still feel like they're defined by what society says. I mentioned earlier to you, James Baldwin. And in his writing, he said, the only way we are defeated, the only way we're defeated is when we believe and internalize what society has referred to as a Black man as a nigger. And I know that's harsh language, but that's the reality. And nigger can be defined as thug. It can be defined as, all that is. And until we unpack that, and we're that, unfortunately, we are that resource pool to do that. And ask me how I know, because it was when I saw Barack Obama get elected that night, on that November 8th day, sitting in that correctional. I'm sitting in a correctional institution, and I watched this happen, and the wheels of change began. What possibly could happen if these young men see our lawyers, our attorneys, our doctors, our educators, our athletes? What happens when they're in the presence of that? The same thing that happens when they're in the presence of the negative. It's going to be the same thing that's going to happen when they're in the presence of that positive. Absolutely. It is going to influence their outcomes.
Yeah. And that's why I do this show. That's why I started this movement, because number one, I'm an optimist. And in fact, I like to consider myself to be an irrepressible optimist. I am
Happy ass Michael.
that's right, Michael Happy Ass Taylor, boy, I tell you. But again, it isn't until we, as Black men, begin collaborating, supporting each other, empowering each other, we can no longer blame the system.
No,
the system's still there. I'm not denying that. But we can no longer blame the system. There's enough of us with knowledge, resources that can support and empower us to overcome all the obstacles in our community. I believe that. That's what I believe.
If you didn't believe that, I hope you believe that today when you look at me, and if you ever look at this, I'm that person who will have looked at the people like you and said, man, I could never be like that brother, or that brother would never. That I'm telling you, that mindset. I'm telling you, I'm a 6-time felon. I'm telling you, I'm tatted up. I'm telling you, I thought I was going to die in a blaze of glory or be in the chain gang for the rest of my life. But it was individuals such as you that when I was able to be exposed to, I'm telling you, for any of your colleagues who have come on this show, for any of the individuals who will come on this show, I'm from that breed. I'm the one who from the other side of the tracks, on the other side of the tracks, who some folks say, oh, don't be like that. I'm that. And it was, man, it was you. It was that showed me the best of what I could be. We see the best of ourselves in you. That's why it's so important. You have to show them the best. You have to have a platform like this to show a society that has seen the worst of ourselves on the media, through the systems, through every aspect of this society that says, this is who you are. Silencing the voices of the happy ass Michaels. Silencing the voices of our distinguished Black leaders. Silencing. So you're right. The system is going to be the system. They're still going to be churning out there. But this space here provides that opportunity. And I'm saying that to individuals who may come on here. I represent that 2.2 million that's been, locked away in poverty, who think that we can never be like y'all. We need y'all to tell us that we are y'all. We're the best version of, you are the best version of what we can be. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I'm so grateful that we connected on LinkedIn. And I don't believe in accidents. Everything happens for a reason. And we've been brought together by divine providence, I believe. And because we share the same mission. We share the same mission. And that, and my tagline is empowering Black men to live extraordinary lives. Because I know what we're capable of.
Exactly.
I know what we're capable of. And you're a living testament to that. So
and you're a living testament of that. Let me say that. Don't mistake that. I know you probably come on here and you have to, but I want to say to you on this show right now, Michael, happy ass Michael, you are the living embodiment of the best of who we are and what we can become. And I want to thank you. And I say that with tears in my eyes, and I don't even say that lightly. So do not take nothing Terrence Coffie say lightly, because I tell people every day, when I have opportunity to speak to individuals like you, I want to say to you, I came from the gutters. I looked at men like you where you're at with complete and utter admiration. Complete, utter admiration. You were the type of man that I would look at on the TV that I fantasized that I wanted to be like, but just never had the. So in every one of those men that you reach out to and who sees this, who come from where I come from, I want to let you know what's deep down inside of them. We wish to emulate you. We want to know how to walk like you and think like you. So I know you do a lot of uplifting up of people. I get that. But I want to take this time to uplift you and tell you thank you so much for choosing to be the best version of who you are. for somebody like me, that society told me something else. So I'll stop there.
Love you, my brother. I appreciate it. I take that in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, with that being said, I want to give you an opportunity now for your final message to the audience. The brothers out there who are looking at this and they may be in those bad places. They may not believe they can get out of those situations. What's your message to them?
My message is this. Believe in the best part of yourself. It's real. It's real. And it is possible. But on that journey, don't think that it'll be easy to work through you. And your greatest enemy is not gonna be no system. Which whoever hears this, particularly my people, your greatest enemy won't be those people. The greatest enemy you're gonna face in this world and in this journey you're gonna be on, which y'all already know, it's going to be you. That human part that speaks to you, that's the one, not the other. It's him. And I leave that with y'all, because if you hear this, you know what I'm talking about. We'll leave that there.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to close with a simple idea. I want you to grasp this idea. You don't have to embrace any organized religion, but if you will come to an understanding that there is a divine intelligence that created and is still creating this amazing universe, and you have access to this divine intelligence, it is in you. It is a part of you. It is that part of you, I believe, that has you watching this video right now. See, I don't believe in accidents. You're watching this video. It wasn't an accident. So learn to listen to that still small voice within yourself. That's divine intelligence. That's divine intelligence that's wanting to move your life in a positive direction. I'm no different than anybody else. Like I said, I've got an 11th grade education. I was born in the inner city projects of Corpus Christi, Texas, to a single mom with 6 kids, and we were the poster children for poverty back in the 60s. So I haven't had any special privileges, but what I had was a commitment. And that commitment was to live an extraordinary life. And I've been able to create my version of one. And I want you to do the same. And that's why I do this show, to share people like Mr. Terrence, who is, brother, I love you, man. I mean, what you share, you're what this show is all about. Because you shattered every imaginable stereotype that society has put out there about us. And look what you've accomplished, brother. So I throw it right back at you, man. I am so proud of you and who you are, what you've done. I'm blessed to know you, my friend. So remember, we're just examples of what's possible. So whatever doubt you may have in your mind, whatever fear you may have, know that we've done it, so can you. Mm-hmm. And as Sarah said, it ain't gonna be easy. I'm not gonna blow a bunch of smoke up your behind and say, yeah, it's gonna be, because it ain't. I've been doing this work for 25 plus years. And I still feel like I'm just a teenager along this journey, but I'm committed to growing. I'm committed to becoming the best version of myself. And that's an endless journey. That's something that I'll be doing the rest of my life, because I can always become better, and so can you. All right, so this has been another episode of Shattering Stereotypes. Terrence, thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Continued success in all that you're doing, man. You've got my contact information. If I can support you in any way, don't be afraid to reach out.
I promise you I won't. And again, I want to thank you for having me on today, Michael. It's truly been a blessing. And I pray that this broadcast is a blessing to someone who hears it. And I look forward, oh my God, I look forward to the day that the person who said that they looked at this, they come on the show and said, man, I was looking at your show, Michael. One day I seen this cat talking about tattoos and gunplay, and now he's talking about being an educator at New York. I look forward to that day. Thank you for having me, brother.
All right, my brother. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.